The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the upscale restaurant's private dining room as I adjusted my tie nervously. I hadn't been invited to Marcus's promotion party, but I couldn't stay away. After 28 years of watching my son from the sidelines, missing too many moments while building my empire, I needed to be here for this one. "Dad?" Marcus's voice cut through the celebratory chatter, shock evident in his tone. "What are you doing here?" I forced a smile as his colleagues turned to look at us. "I wanted to congratulate you on your promotion to regional manager. I'm proud of you, son." Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. To everyone else, he probably looked like a dutiful son greeting his father. But I could read the irritation in his eyes, the same look he'd given me since high school when I'd shown up to his events uninvited. Always the intruder in his carefully constructed world. "This is really more of a company thing," he said quietly, but loud enough for nearby colleagues to hear. "You know how it is." I nodded, swallowing the familiar sting of rejection. "Of course. I'll just say hello to a few people and head out." But I didn't leave. Something kept me rooted there, watching my son work the room with the same calculated charm I'd once used in boardrooms. He was good at this, better than I'd ever been at his age. An hour passed. I found myself relegated to a corner table, nursing a whiskey and making small talk with a few junior employees who seemed genuinely interested in hearing about Marcus's childhood. I was sharing a story about his Little League days when I heard voices from the next table over. "So that's Marcus's dad?" someone was saying. "Seems nice enough." "Yeah," came Marcus's voice, slightly slurred from the wine. "But honestly, he doesn't know when to back off. It's like he thinks showing up to everything will make up for all those years he was too busy with work to actually be a father." My chest tightened, but I kept my expression neutral, pretending to focus on my drink. "That's rough, man," another voice sympathized. Marcus laughed bitterly. "You have no idea. Sometimes I feel like he's this burden I have to carry around, always trying to insert himself into my life, always wanting credit for my success when the truth is, I got here despite him, not because of him." The words hit me like physical blows. I'd heard Marcus express frustration with me before, but never with such venom, such finality. In his mind, I wasn't just a disappointing father. I was an active hindrance to his happiness. "That's harsh," someone else said, "but I get it. Some parents just don't know when their job is done." "Exactly," Marcus continued. "I love the guy. But God, I wish he'd just let me live my own life without constantly reminding me of his existence. It's exhausting being someone's project, you know?" I finished my whiskey in one burning gulp and stood to leave. This had been a mistake, one in a long line of mistakes where Marcus was concerned. As I made my way toward the exit, I collided with someone coming out of the restroom. "I'm so sorry," I said, steadying the man, tall, distinguished, probably in his 60s. "No harm done," he replied with a warm smile. "Are you enjoying the party?" It's wonderful to see Marcus getting the recognition he deserves. "Yes," I managed. "He's worked very hard." The man extended his hand. "I don't think we've met. I'm Robert Patterson." The name hit me like lightning. Robert Patterson, CEO of Patterson Industries, one of the largest manufacturing conglomerates on the East Coast. My mind raced as I shook his hand. "James Morrison," I replied carefully. "Morrison." He tilted his head thoughtfully. "That name sounds familiar. Wait, you're not James Morrison of Morrison Dynamics, are you?" I nodded slowly. "I am." Patterson's eyes widened with recognition and something approaching awe. "Well, I'll be damned. This is incredible. Marcus never mentioned—" He paused, his expression shifting to confusion. "Marcus is your son?" "He is. But he never said anything about being related to you. My God, Morrison Dynamics practically revolutionized supply chain management for half the Fortune 500. We've been trying to get a meeting with your company for years." I glanced back toward the table where Marcus was still holding court, oblivious to our conversation. Marcus prefers to make his own way in the world. He's never asked me for any professional favors. That's remarkable integrity, Patterson said, his voice rising slightly in genuine admiration. In today's world, most young people would leverage every advantage they have, but to build a career entirely on merit when you have access to one of the most influential business networks in the country, that takes real character. Our conversation had begun to draw attention. I noticed a few people turning in our direction, their expressions curious. "Mr. Patterson?" A young woman approached us. I recognized her as one of Marcus's colleagues. "Is everything all right?" "More than all right, Jennifer," Patterson beamed. "I've just discovered we have business royalty among us tonight. This is James Morrison." The name rippled through the growing crowd like electricity. I saw recognition dawn on several faces. These were ambitious young professionals who read Forbes and Business Weekly religiously. They knew exactly who James Morrison was, even if they'd never connected him to their colleague Marcus. "Morrison Dynamics," someone whispered. "The supply chain genius," another person added. "Wait," Jennifer said slowly, her eyes darting between me and the table where Marcus was still sitting, now looking in our direction, with growing alarm. "Marcus Morrison. His last name is Morrison, too. Isn't that your father, the CEO?" The question came from David Chen, one of Marcus's peers, loud enough for half the room to hear. Suddenly, all conversation stopped. Every eye in the room turned first to me, then to Marcus, who had gone pale as parchment. He stood slowly, his wine glass trembling in his hand. "Marcus!" Patterson's voice carried across the silent room. "Is this true? James Morrison is your father?" The silence stretched endlessly. I could see the war playing out on my son's face, the desire to deny it warring with the impossibility of lying to his CEO and colleagues. His carefully constructed professional identity was crumbling in real time. "Yes," Marcus finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's my father." The room erupted in stunned murmurs. I watched as everything changed in an instant, the way people looked at Marcus, the way they reassessed every interaction they'd ever had with him. The young man who'd earned his promotion through hard work and intelligence was suddenly the heir to a business empire, someone who'd chosen anonymity over privilege. "My God," Patterson said, shaking his head in amazement. "Marcus, do you have any idea how extraordinary this makes your achievements? You could have walked into any company in America and demanded a corner office, and instead you started at the bottom here and worked your way up. I've never seen anything like it." But I could see that Marcus didn't feel extraordinary. He felt exposed, humiliated. His secret was out, and with it, the independence he'd fought so hard to maintain. "I need some air," Marcus said abruptly, setting down his glass and pushing through the crowd toward the exit. I found him 10 minutes later on the restaurant's outdoor terrace, leaning against the railing with his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I never meant for any of that to happen." He didn't look up. "You heard what I said in there, about you being a burden." "I did." "And you still came out here to apologize to me?" I joined him at the railing, looking out at the city lights. "You weren't wrong, Marcus. I have been a burden. I missed your childhood chasing success, and then when you grew up, I tried to make up for lost time by forcing myself into your life, whether you wanted me there or not." "Dad, let me finish," I said gently. "You've accomplished something incredible, not just the promotion, but building a life entirely on your own terms. You took my name, but refused my advantages. You succeeded because of who you are, not who I am. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done." Marcus finally looked at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I was so angry at you for so long, for missing everything when I was young, then for hovering when I got older. I wanted to prove I didn't need you." "You don't need me," I said. You proved that a long time ago. But maybe we could figure out how to want each other instead. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of 28 years of misunderstanding beginning to lift. They're all going to see me differently now, Marcus said eventually. Maybe. But they'll see you as someone who chose the hard path when the easy one was available. They'll respect that. Marcus smiled for the first time all evening. Think Patterson will still want to promote me after this awkwardness? Are you kidding? I laughed. He's probably already planning to make you a VP, but Marcus, promise me something. Whatever comes next, do it because you want it, not because you feel obligated to live up to some legacy. I promise, Dad, and maybe you could promise me something too? Anything. Promise you'll let me invite you to the next one, instead of just showing up. I pulled him into a hug, the first real embrace we'd shared in years. Deal. 6 months later, Marcus did get promoted to vice president. I was there for the announcement, invited this time, sitting in the front row as my son delivered a speech about integrity, hard work, and the courage to forge your own path. Afterward, at the celebration dinner, someone asked Marcus about his unusual career journey. My father taught me something important, he said, glancing over at me with a smile. Success isn't about the advantages you're given, it's about what you do with them. Sometimes the greatest gift a parent can give their child isn't a leg up in the world, but the space to climb their own mountain. The burden we'd carried for so many years, his resentment, my guilt, had finally been set down, and in its place, we'd found something better: respect, understanding, and the kind of love that doesn't demand anything in return except the chance to be present for the moments that matter. Sometimes the heaviest burdens are the ones we place on ourselves, and sometimes the greatest victories come not from carrying them alone, but from finally learning how to share the weight. 3 weeks after the revelation at Marcus's promotion party, my phone rang at 6:47 a.m. It was my assistant, Margaret, her voice tight with urgency. Mr. Morrison, you need to see the morning news. Channel 7 is running a story about you and Marcus. I fumbled for the remote, my heart sinking as I saw the banner scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Business Dynasty, heir worked anonymously. For years, inspiring or deceptive. The reporter, a sharp-faced woman named Linda Torres, was standing outside Patterson Industries headquarters. Questions are being raised about whether Marcus Morrison's rapid rise through the company ranks was truly based on merit, or if his famous father's influence played a larger role than anyone realized. My blood ran cold. This was exactly what Marcus had been trying to avoid his entire career. By 8 a.m., my office was buzzing with crisis management specialists, PR consultants, and lawyers. But all I could think about was Marcus, and how I'd single-handedly destroyed the reputation he'd spent years building. I called him 17 times before he finally answered. Dad, I can't talk right now. I'm in meetings all morning trying to explain to the board why they shouldn't fire me for misrepresentation. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never thought. I know you didn't think. You never think about consequences, do you? You just act, and everyone else has to deal with the fallout. The line went dead. By Thursday, the story had grown legs. Business Weekly published a deep-dive investigation titled The Morrison Deception: When Nepotism Hides in Plain Sight. They'd somehow gotten hold of internal Patterson Industries emails, performance reviews, and promotion records spanning Marcus's entire 5-year tenure at the company. I sat in my office reading the article with growing horror. While Marcus Morrison's performance reviews were consistently above average, sources within Patterson Industries suggest that certain high-profile clients specifically requested him for their accounts after learning of his family connection. People wanted to work with him because they thought it would get them closer to Morrison dynamics, said one anonymous executive. The question is, did Marcus know this was happening? The article included a timeline showing how Marcus's most significant career advances had coincidentally occurred after major deals between Patterson Industries and companies in my business network. It painted a picture of systematic favoritism disguised as merit-based promotion. The worst part? Some of it might actually be true. Margaret knocked on my door. "Sir, Marcus Morrison is here to see you." He walked in looking like he hadn't slept in days, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, but his eyes burned with a fury I'd never seen before. "Did you know?" he asked without preamble. Did I know what? Did you know that Patterson Industries has been trying to land Morrison Dynamics as a client for 3 years? Did you know that Robert Patterson specifically assigned me to accounts involving your business partners? Did you know that my promotion was partly based on my exceptional ability to build relationships with key industry leaders, also known as your friends? I stared at him, pieces clicking into place. Marcus, I swear to you, I had no idea Patterson was even interested in working with us. I've never spoken to Robert Patterson about business before that night. But your people have. Your VP of Strategic Partnerships, Janet Walsh, she's been in talks with Patterson's people for months. They wanted to use me as an unofficial liaison. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. I would have been informed about any potential partnerships that significant. Marcus laughed bitterly. Would you? Or have you become so detached from day-to-day operations that your executives are making deals behind your back, using your son as leverage? The emergency board meeting at Morrison Dynamics was scheduled for 2 p.m. I walked into the conference room to find my senior leadership team looking uncomfortable, their usual confident demeanor replaced by nervous fidgeting. "Someone want to explain to me what's going on?" I said without sitting down. Janet Walsh, my VP of Strategic Partnerships, and a woman I'd trusted implicitly for 8 years, cleared her throat. "James, we need to talk about the Patterson situation." "Yes, we do." Starting with why I'm reading about it in Business Weekly instead of hearing about it from my own team. Janet exchanged glances with CFO Michael Torres before continuing. "We've been exploring a potential partnership with Patterson Industries for several months. When we learned that Marcus worked there, we saw an opportunity to expedite negotiations." Expedite how? We may have mentioned to their team that having Marcus involved in relevant projects would be looked upon favorably by Morrison Dynamics. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. I could feel my carefully constructed business empire cracking beneath me. "You used my son," I said slowly. "You used my son as a bargaining chip without telling either of us." "It wasn't like that," Michael interjected. "We thought you knew. We assumed you and Marcus had discussed it. The partnership would have been worth $40 million annually. $40 million. I repeated the number, understanding now why they'd moved forward without explicit approval. It was the kind of deal that could define a career, the kind that executives might risk everything to secure. "James, you have to understand," Janet continued. "Your relationship with Marcus has been strained. We thought maybe this could help repair it while also benefiting the company. A win-win." A win-win. I looked around the table at these people I'd worked with for years, people I'd trusted with my life's work. And it never occurred to you that using my son without his knowledge might destroy any chance of repairing that relationship. The silence stretched, until finally, Tom Rodriguez, my general counsel, spoke up. "The media attention has been significant. Patterson Industries called this morning. They're suspending all partnership discussions pending a full investigation into potential ethics violations." I closed my eyes. It was worse than I'd thought. I found Marcus at his apartment that evening, packing boxes with mechanical precision. His living room was half empty, walls bare where pictures and artwork had hung. "Going somewhere?" I asked. "Chicago," he said without looking up. "I have a job interview with Brennan Consulting on Monday, assuming the scandal hasn't reached them yet." I sat down heavily on his couch. Marcus, I need to tell you something. If it's another apology, save it. I'm done with apologies. My executives used you. They used you as leverage to try to secure a partnership with Patterson Industries, and they did it without telling either of us. Marcus stopped packing and looked at me for the first time since I'd arrived. What are you talking about? I explained everything. Janet's admission, the $40 million deal, the way my own leadership team had orchestrated a scheme that implicated both of us in nepotism we'd never agreed to. When I finished, Marcus sank into his armchair, looking older than his 28 years. So it was all fake, he said quietly. My promotion, my success, everything. I was just a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. No, I said firmly. That's not true. I've read your performance reviews, Marcus. I've talked to your colleagues, the work you did, the clients you satisfied, the problems you solved. That was all you. My executives may have opened doors, but you're the one who walked through them and succeeded. It doesn't matter, he said, his voice hollow. The perception is that I cheated, that I built my career on Daddy's connections. Even if I get another job, this will follow me forever. We sat in silence for several minutes, both of us processing the magnitude of what had been done to us and what we'd inadvertently done to each other. I'm going to fire them, I said finally. Janet, Michael, anyone who was involved in this scheme, and I'm going to make a public statement explaining exactly what happened. Don't, Marcus said immediately. Don't destroy your company because of this. Fire them quietly if you want, but a public confession will just make everything worse, for both of us. Then what do you want me to do? Marcus looked at me with eyes that held a lifetime of disappointment, and for the first time in years, a glimmer of something that might have been respect. I want you to let me handle this myself, he said. I want you to trust that I can figure out how to rebuild my reputation without your help. Can you do that? It was the hardest thing he could have asked of me. Every instinct screamed to fix this, to use my resources and connections to protect my son. But I could see in his face that this was his test, not just of his ability to overcome adversity, but of my ability to finally, truly let him be independent. Yes, I said, I can do that. 6 months later, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping from the Chicago Business Journal. Brennan Consulting promotes Marcus Williams to senior partner. Marcus Williams, formerly Marcus Morrison, has been promoted to senior partner at Brennan Consulting after leading the firm's most successful client acquisition campaign in company history. Williams, who legally changed his name 6 months ago, joined Brennan after a high-profile departure from Patterson Industries. Marcus came to us with complete transparency about his background, said Brennan's CEO Sarah Mitchell. Rather than hide from the controversy, he used it as motivation to prove himself. In 6 months, he's brought in 12 new clients and developed innovative strategies that have become our new standard. His integrity and work ethic are exemplary. When asked about his famous father, Williams said, "I love my dad, but I'm not him. I'm building my own legacy, under my own name, based on my own choices." That's something I think he'd be proud of. Attached to the clipping was a handwritten note. Dad, I thought you should know that I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. Chicago is great, and I'm finally doing work that feels entirely mine. I also thought you should know that I've been thinking about what you said that night on the terrace, about learning to want each other instead of needing each other. I think I'm ready for that now. My new address is below. Maybe you could come visit sometime. I'd like to show you what I've built. Love, Marcus P.S. I kept Morrison as my middle name. Some things are worth holding on to. I stood in the audience of the Chicago Convention Center, watching my son deliver the keynote address at the National Consulting Conference. The placard in front of his podium read, Marcus M. Williams, Senior Partner, Brennan Consulting. His speech was about integrity in business, about the courage to start over when your reputation is damaged, about proving yourself through actions rather than connections. He didn't mention me by name, but I heard echoes of our conversations in every word. Afterward, at the reception, a young man approached me. "Excuse me, are you James Morrison? From Morrison Dynamics?" "I am." "Wow, I'm a huge fan of your work. That supply chain optimization system you developed changed everything for companies like mine. Are you here supporting Marcus Williams? I heard you two know each other." I smiled, thinking of how far we'd both come. "Yes, I'm here supporting Marcus. He's someone very important to me." "That's so cool. He's incredible, isn't he? The way he rebuilt his career after that whole scandal with his father. Such an inspiration." I nodded, watching Marcus across the room, surrounded by admirers and colleagues who respected him for what he'd accomplished entirely on his own. "Yes," I said, "he really is." Later that evening, Marcus and I sat in his Chicago apartment, spacious, modern, decorated with awards and recognition he'd earned under his chosen name. On his desk was a framed photo of the two of us from his college graduation, the last picture we'd taken together before everything got complicated. "I'm proud of you," I told him, "not because you're my son, but because of who you chose to become." "I'm proud of you too, Dad. It couldn't have been easy, letting me figure this out on my own. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most important." We talked until late into the night, two men who'd learned that sometimes love means stepping back, that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the space to discover their own strength. The burden was finally gone. Not because we'd learned to carry it together, but because we'd learned we didn't need to carry it at all. Instead, we'd found something infinitely more valuable: respect, earned through struggle and time, and the courage to let each other be exactly who we were meant to be. And perhaps most importantly, we'd learned that the truest measure of a relationship isn't whether you need each other, but whether you choose each other, again and again, despite having every reason to walk away. Sometimes that choice is the beginning of everything.